All right, there's a global health alert going off right now, and it's all about H5N1. You'd probably know it as bird flu. But here's the thing. This isn't the same old virus we've been hearing about for years. Something's different. It's changing. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what's new and why it's so important right now.
Yeah, bird flu is back, and it is definitely changing. The message we're getting from health authorities around the world is pretty stark. This virus is starting to behave in new, kind of unpredictable ways. So let's get right into it and figure out what is going on.
Okay, first up, let's look at the outbreaks on the ground. We'll start there. This is the latest intel we have from reports coming out in November 2025.
So in Europe, they are not messing around. The response has been really swift, really aggressive. Over in the UK, just one case popped up at a poultry site in Norfolk, and bam, they immediately set up a 10-kilometer surveillance zone and started culling. That's, the humane depopulation of the flocks to stop it from spreading. And then you look at Ireland. They've gone even further. They've issued a mandatory housing order for all poultry, the whole country. It's basically like building a firewall to protect their entire national flock.
But while Europe is laser-focused on locking this down within their poultry populations, the story happening over in the United States, well, it's a bit more complicated than that.
See, in the US, H5N1 isn't just hanging out in wild birds and poultry anymore. It has made this pretty significant leap to a whole new species, dairy cows. And that, right there, is a total game changer. Because with that jump, we've now seen several confirmed human cases. Now, these are farm workers, people in really close contact with the animals. And to be clear, the CDC says the risk to the general public is still low. But this jump, from birds to mammals, this is exactly the kind of thing scientists have been worried about and watching for.
And that really brings us to the core reason for this whole alert. It's not just about where the virus is showing up. It's about what the virus itself is becoming.
So you've got experts warning that the virus is mutating every single year. This isn't some static threat that we can just pin down. No, it's evolving. And because of that, it's starting to show up earlier than usual, and it's popping up in regions where we haven't seen it before. It's just showing a whole new level of adaptability, which is frankly pretty dangerous.
And you can see just how far and wide it's spreading. I mean, just look at Ireland. Over 40 wild birds have tested positive this year alone. What that tells us is that there's this huge mobile reservoir of H5N1 out there. These birds are basically acting as carriers, flying across vast distances and creating new potential hotspots wherever they land. So let's back up for a second. Why is this H5N1 strain such a big deal anyway? Well, the key is right in the name. Highly pathogenic. For a bird, this isn't just a sniffle or a common cold. It's a really severe and often fatal disease. And that super high mortality rate, that's what triggers these drastic all-hands-on-deck containment measures you see on poultry farms.
But this is the real headline. For years, the main thing we worried about was bird-to-bird spread. But now, with it spreading among dairy cows in the US, H5N1 has officially crossed a major biological barrier. A virus that was supposed to stick to birds is now making itself at home in mammals. That's the crucial change.
Okay, so Section 3, racing to contain the spread. We've got this adapting virus on the move, so how is the world fighting back? Let's take a look at the playbook.
All right, so the official playbook is pretty intense. It's multi-layered and aggressive. Step 1 is that immediate lockdown, setting up these 3-kilometer protection zones, and then 10-kilometer surveillance zones around an outbreak. Step 2 is about being preemptive, like that housing order in Ireland. Get all the birds indoors, away from any wild birds that might be carrying it. And step 3, that's the long game, strict biosecurity. We're talking constant disinfection, tracking every single movement, and making sure farmers report anything that looks off immediately. It is like a total full-court press.
Okay, so we've looked at the outbreaks, we've looked at the response, but what does this all actually mean right now? What's the bottom line here?
Right now, you kind of have to think about the risk in two different ways. On one hand, for farmers and the entire livestock industry, the threat is absolutely high. This has huge economic impacts, not to mention the animal welfare side of things. But on the other hand, for the general public, agencies like the CDC are stressing that the risk is still low. Those few human cases we've seen have all been linked to people with direct, day-in, day-out exposure to infected animals. There's no evidence, at least not yet, of it spreading easily from person to person.
So if you're looking for the big takeaway, it's this. What we're watching is basically a high-stakes chess match happening in real time.
In one corner, you have an H5N1 virus that's evolving and becoming more adaptable than we've ever seen. And in the other corner, you have the entire global health system throwing every aggressive strategy it has at the problem, really trying to stay one step ahead.
And all of this really leaves us with one critical, lingering question. We're reacting, and reacting pretty effectively right now. But this virus is a moving target. It's constantly changing. So as H5N1 keeps adapting, are our global defenses actually ready for whatever comes next?